because of what happened during the massacre last year, the Friends of Israel, its backers, whether in the Middle East, the US, Britain, more and more isolated and exposed. It's harder and harder to justify being a friend of Israel. People are friends of Israel, and obviously British government and American government, you know, they are the backers, the inciters, the instigators of Israel and all its crimes. And British workers need to understand that, you know, that it's not just some abstract humanitarian question, but there's a direct connection between the interests of British oil corporations, British arms corporations, and what goes on in the Middle East, and, you know, why the Palestinians have been suffering all of this time. But yes, the solidarity movement has taken on a new momentum, and I feel that we really need to be building on that, and showing British workers their connection and taking part in every type of action that is going to make the movement bigger and stronger and harder to ignore. Whether it's the siege busting, like the Free Gaza movement, they're taking the boats to make the siege unworkable, send the message to Israel that the siege isn't going to work. The quest to bring the war criminals to justice, you know. I mean, it was wonderful when we were out in Aqaba, we heard the news about CPGB-ML, you know, that she'd cancelled her trip to Britain because a British magistrate, was it, had issued an arrest warrant as soon as she landed. And what was the response of our government? Terribly, terribly embarrassed. We'll look at how we can change the law. But at the moment there is a law of was it universal jurisdiction, they call it, for international crimes against humanity under international law, and you know, all of these things. These are weapons in our hands, and we can use them. The movement for boycott, disinvestment, and sanctions is something that the Palestinians themselves call for very strongly, and you know, in trade unions, in schools, in hospitals, in universities, in all our workplaces. It's not only is it good to break these links, but it gives us an opportunity, if you're campaigning somewhere to break the links with Israel and to disinvest in Israeli goods, then you're also raising people's awareness about why you should be doing that and making the movement stronger. You know, it's an excuse to have meetings and talk about what's going on, what the result of the siege is, how Israel's complicit, how British firms are complicit. No cooperation with war crimes is, you know, one of our party's big slogans about Palestine, about Iraq, about Afghanistan, and that's something we should be really focusing on and pushing very hard for wherever we work. You know, how can we make it relevant to our workplaces? I work in the media, you know, and to me, the media complicity with these war crimes is also criminal. You know, at Nuremberg they found Hitler's propagandists guilty of war crimes because they said it's an illegal war, and that's the highest crime against humanity, invading a sovereign country, you know, without justification. They classed that as the highest crime, a crime against humanity, and they said propaganda which justifies, which supports, which backs up this kind of illegal warfare is also a crime. Now that's exactly what our media in this country is guilty of. And I think it's very, very important that we should be working to get media workers to refuse to cooperate, to say, okay, I will not put out a government press release without checking all the facts. I will not, you know, use the language of the government and the army when I talk about, you know, the enemy. Yeah, or the language of the Israeli army when I talk about the Palestinian resistance. I will not frame the context in such a way that doesn't explain the history or who's actually committing a crime here. You know, I mean, when you look at BBC coverage of Palestine, Israel, how often do they talk about the occupation? How often do they mention that it's illegal? How often do they talk about the siege? You know, how often do they talk about the fact that what Israel refers to as southern Israel is illegally occupied? You know, how often do they say that? Almost never. So, refusing to cooperate with any of the machinery that keeps Israel going on every level, I think is a really important message from us, from everyone, to the working class movement generally, that we collectively have a lot of power in this conflict. Not only do we have a responsibility that our government is, and the British ruling class is so deeply involved, but we have a lot of power also, you know, and the actions that have been taken by working people against Raytheon in Derry, against Edo MDM in Brighton. You know, these are arms companies that are making parts which go straight out to Israel to be used against Palestinians. And Raytheon has actually now announced that it's leaving Derry, which is fantastic. You know, but we have to make sure if they settle somewhere else, you know, in British territory and start trying to make the same thing, that we're gonna move them on. You know, that they won't find a safe haven here for making weapons to be used against Palestinian people. And essentially, you know, the real message I came back with from the convoy was, it was great to go in, it was great to meet the people and see what was happening and talk to them for, even if it was for only a very short amount of time. But that the mission actually isn't over until the siege is lifted. The mission isn't over until Palestine is free, and that's something now more than ever. You know, the movement is building. We can build on it. We can push it that much forward, and the Palestinian people are crying out for us to do that, to do everything we can. They're doing what they can from inside. They're resisting in every way they can. They need us to join with them, and together, you know, we can defeat Israel, and Palestine can be free.